So now what we're looking at, or what we're faced with, is what do we do with all these things that we have to do? All these sticky notes, everything else that's floating around in our minds. What do we do? How do we put them in some order that will make sense when we go to do these things and do them productively? Well, obviously, what this slide represents is planning, and planning gives you time, it equals time to get things done, and then planning and time will equal money. And if you look at it that way, if you think in terms of I've got to plan my time so that I can make more money, then you're going to be a lot more productive. Okay, I know what you're thinking, and I've been there many times, sitting in lectures, et cetera, and hearing somebody say, well, this is what you do, and this is how you do it. And in the back of my mind, it's, well, that all sounds great, but there is a problem. Here is the problem. With all that we have to plan, all those things out there that we've got to consider, what are we going to do and when are we going to do them? The biggest challenge we have is setting priorities. And I am going to, in the next 5 or 10 minutes, show you a foolproof way to set priorities. And it's very simple, but it's something that it's going to take work. You're going to have to develop it into a habit. But stay with me, and I promise you, you will see how easy it is once you see this to set priorities. I think this slide is pretty much says it all, and it's not just lawyers; it's just about every other business person, and that is that people, when deciding what to do each day, it's difficult to get into the action, if you will, without knowing the value of what those actions are, and especially in many cases what the value of those actions are long term. And what I want to do, as I said, is I am going to show you how you can take all of those things that you need to plan, take a look and assign a value to them, and then incorporate them into your day. Okay, we're going to start getting into the real heart of this. And basically, there are only 3 priorities that you need to worry about. The very first priority are those things that can get you in trouble if you do not timely complete them. For instance, you've got a brief due on Wednesday that has to be on the judge's desk at 9 o'clock in the morning Wednesday, or you've got a lawsuit that you've got to file because the statute of limitations may be running out, or you have interrogatories that have to be answered. You know, maybe you've been sloughing off and you didn't get them answered, and the judge kind of gave you 10 days to get them answered, and the 10th day runs out on Wednesday. So those are the things that if you don't do them, they're going to get you in trouble. Now, I mentioned those were from a litigator standpoint, but I mean, depending on what your practice area is, you may have situations where you have to get a contract completed so the client can sign it. You may have to have another project completed. You may have to get a divorce settlement agreement finalized so that the client or your clients and the other party can come in and actually sign this. So you see where I'm going here. These are the things that if you don't do them, you're going to get in trouble. And as we go through this, I'm going to give you some hints, but in all reality, you are the ones that know what is the most important thing that you have to do to keep yourself out of trouble. I can't give you a guideline for those things. I just threw out a few things, but you see where I'm going here. You are the ones that are going to have to make that ultimate decision of what is something that's going to get you in trouble, and you can, put that on your calendar and go forward and do it. But also, what is not going to get you in trouble that you could put off maybe till tomorrow or the next day or whatever. Basically, the second priority is money. Obviously, you cannot stay in business as a lawyer if you're not making money. So in order to make money, you've got to be doing some marketing. I know to many lawyers that is a word that they don't like to hear, but if in fact you want to grow your practice and provide for your family, you're going to have to find a way to market. Now, I'm also talking in terms of money being when you have to bill people. So that's the second priority that you have. And the third priority is your family or your personal life. And I'm not trying to downplay the fact that your families aren't important, but in terms of your priorities for the day, for your working day, they do come in third because, again, if you don't do the first two, you really are not taking care of your family, quite frankly. So your family can be things like, you've got to go to your daughter's rehearsal, wedding, or not wedding rehearsal, but piano rehearsal. You got a young, sixth grade daughter, and you got to go to that rehearsal. So that's important. Other family matters may not be important, but these are things, again, you're going to have to decide what is important. But in the hierarchy of the things that are in priority, it's the things that can get you in trouble that if you don't get done, and I usually use a T to indicate those items, and then the money or marketing, whichever way you want to look at it, but money is probably the best way, is an M, and F for family. Okay, I will bet when this slide appeared and some of you saw that it said the system, you kind of freaked out because most of us don't want to do a system. We look at systems as being cumbersome, taking a long time to implement, and all the other things that are bad about a system. But what we're going to talk about is a system that basically is very, very simple and quite frankly only has maybe two and maybe three elements to it, depending on the way you look at it. So we're not talking about a long, detailed system that you have to sit down, write out, and have everybody come on board, because this is going to be a system for you. Now, that's not to say that once you start working it and you have other lawyers in your office or paralegals or whoever, you can't take this to them and show them what you're doing and how you're doing it. But please don't freak out with the word system. We're going to talk a little bit about the to-do list. And quite frankly, when I'm talking about your to-do list, I want you to be thinking in terms of not loading it up with a lot of items like I've seen a lot of people do. I would think, and again, this is your own particular preference, but I wouldn't put any more than, say, 10 to 15 items at the most at any one time on your to-do list. And what I'm going to take you through is your to-do list and how you're going to use your to-do list to get those items on an appointment with yourself. There are basically two tools that you will need to implement this system. The one is your to-do list, and I know I kind of gave you maybe the wrong impression about a to-do list in a previous slide, but you have to have a to-do list. Now, let me make something very clear, okay, as I go through the rest of this talk on your system. Many of you probably have digital systems. You use Outlook or whatever, and that's fine. I'm just showing you one thing that you can then take and implement across your other systems, because Outlook has, your task list and other things in it. So the bottom line here is I'm not telling you to do this, not use this system. I am just saying, or use these tools, I'm sorry. I'm just saying to you, here is what I'm suggesting. Take what I'm suggesting and adjust it to whatever you are doing. And if you're not doing something like this right now, then obviously you can start with a paper system, or you can get an Outlook or some other system that you can keep track of and I'm going to say this word because this is the key to this whole program, your appointments. And you'll see exactly what I'm talking about in just a minute. But this whole system really has to do with making appointments for yourself. We make appointments for when somebody's coming into our office. We make appointments for everything else. But this system really depends on you making appointments for yourself. The other thing with regard to a to-do list, and I know I see lawyers sometimes with a yellow pad and they have got 50 items, 2 pages of to-do list, and they go through and they check these off as they get them done. But one of the things they don't do is they many times don't prioritize what items are on that to-do list. And my suggestion would be never have more than 15 items on a to-do list. So when you complete something or you set up something, you can add another one. Now, if you want to go 20, fine. You know, again, everybody has their own individual way of doing things. And again, this is just my suggestion to get you into the frame of mind of starting to do something like this. Now, this is the second tool that you will be using. And basically, this is, you know, a weekly calendar. And this one happens to be, I think it's at a glance, but there's a number of them out there that you can use. But the important thing is that this sets up weekly calendar day by day with time slots. Now, I don't know whether you can see this one that happens to have a time slot for every 15 minutes. Again, some people like every 30 minutes, whatever is your preference. And I want to say this right now, and I'll keep repeating it. This is just a suggestion. This is the way I can deliver this to you in probably the quickest way. If you're using Outlook or some other system, well, that's fine. This is just the system I'm using right now to get across the point. And the point really is this. With this weekly calendar, if we could extrapolate it out, we would go in and we would see that there have been certain things that have been put on that calendar, such as a deposition on such and such date, maybe you have a trial coming up or a motion hearing, you have a luncheon scheduled, you know, a whole bunch of different things that have been scheduled in advance and they're in your appointment book. So what I want you to think about is, okay, we've put those things in there, appointments with others, if you will. They may be motion hearings or whatever, but there's something else that you've got to do, the appointment with others. What I want you to really be doing here is thinking in terms of making appointments with yourself. And that is going to be the key to this whole system. It's making the appointments with yourself on a specific day, on a specific time, taking into consideration those items that would take priority, which we discussed just a little while ago. And I'm going to show you how this all comes together. Okay, what we basically have here is just a blank page with Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday on it. And it's blank, but it's taken out of that book, if you will, and that's what it'll look like. I think this one has it set up with quarter or half-hour increments, but that's not important. The important thing is we're looking at a calendar and we're looking at what we're going to do with that calendar. I have not, if you would, or if you will, taken and put anything in there that we've previously scheduled. And now I've just basically taking a Monday and a Tuesday, 2 days. It's the whole calendar, but I've just blown it up a little bit so we can talk about how we're going to add items to our calendar now that we are using a calendar to set appointments with ourselves. Now, again, this is our to-do list. And, you know, again, any way you want to do your to-do list is totally fine with me as long as you're doing it. This one, you know, it's got the, I know, don't worry about what's on there right now, but just the concept that we've got a to-do list and we've got a little section on the left for priority. What we're going to fill that in is what priority items are. I have that section, I don't know whether you can see it, to the right of the items it says appointment, and then it's got done. Again, you can do this in any way you want. This is just for illustration here to and show you how some of the folks that I've trained and taught do it, and that's kind of the key. You have a way to start and then build on this. So here's that to-do list, and I've kind of, shortened it up or made cut some of it off and just left some of the items on there. And again, the actual items, if you can't see them, don't worry about them. And I'm going to go through them. But this is basically the blow up, if you will, of about half of that to-do list, just to give you an idea of how we're going to schedule some of these items. Well, now we're going to talk about the to-do list that, and I've shortened it up, obviously, so that maybe you can see some of this. And again, what's on there is not important. It's the concept. But for instance, and these are in no particular order. They just happen to be something that I just basically put in there for no particular reason. But the first item is draft Smith lawsuit. Well, if I don't do that, is that going to get me in trouble? Yes. Okay. Review and file Jones motion. That could get me in trouble, obviously. Call Attorney Smith on bank closing. Now, this is one of those things that could or could not get you in trouble. And it may be that Jones is your client. I'm sorry, Smith is the attorney handling a closing for a client of yours on a commercial building or something, and you got to stay on top of it. So it could get you in trouble if you don't keep that, in the forefront and make sure it gets done. Pick up laundry, obviously that doesn't even count. Review doctor's deposition. Well, let's just say that you have taken a doctor's deposition, you got it back over the weekend or on Friday, and you want to take a quick look at it, or maybe you want to go in depth and detail. It depends. But again, it may be that you need to review the doctor's deposition because you're taking another doctor's deposition, and you need to have that, down pat. The take Jerry to lunch, I put an M on that because that could be taking a client to lunch, or Jerry could be another attorney that you're taking to lunch, hoping to develop a referral relationship. So basically, I put an M on that because that's rather important, obviously, because you need to start bringing in money. Send flowers to wife on anniversary. I put a T on that, and I won't say anything more other than that's one of those things you better do or you're going to get in trouble for. And then I got scheduled deposition of Wilson. I don't need to really look at that right now. Revised brief on Thomas case. Maybe I've got a secretary gave me the brief back, and this is the brief that's due on Wednesday or whenever it is. Just things of this nature, okay? And so you see where I'm going with it, and I put them on there, and then to the right of that you've got where appointment, APPOI, I just didn't spell it all out, but that basically says, have you made the appointment with yourself? Okay, and done. Well, that's another line. If you want to use it, that's fine. Maybe it makes you feel good if you've actually finished it, but you have this in your appointment book. And that's where it needs to be. It doesn't really matter whether it gets done here. Now, you may want to, once you put it in your appointment book, you may want to cross this off, because what you're going to be doing is adding items, obviously, to your to-do list. Okay, what we have here is basically, and I've just shortened it to a Monday and a Tuesday, and you'll see that I have put in Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday. You don't see the Wednesday and Thursday. But I put in a half hour every morning for marketing. And there's a reason for that. But my point being is, there it is. It's there. Are you going to do marketing? And when we talk about marketing, we're not talking about, having to spend a lot of time. There's a lot of things you can be doing that's considered marketing. And I know when I talk to attorneys and I say, well, here's something short you can do. And just it can take you 20 minutes to send 5 notes to clients, thank you notes, how are you doing notes, congratulations on your kid graduating from high school. Those are the type of things that we teach in the programs with regard to getting more and better referrals from both clients and attorneys. But I'll leave that at that right now. And on Monday, I've got a half hour, and I go down and I look at my list. Can I review the doctor's deposition in a half hour? Maybe I can, maybe I can't. But if I can, and I think I can squeeze it in a half hour, that's important. I'm going to put it in there. Again, I didn't put these in any particular order just yet, okay? And then the next one, when you see down there, you'll take a look. and it basically says, you know, an hour for this particular thing. The other thing I would like you to do is look at where it says at 11 o'clock. That's when I want you to specifically set a time every day to review your emails and answer them if you have to, and return phone calls. We're going to talk a little bit more in length in just a little bit about some of the things that you can do that will make you more productive, if you will, as far as email and the phone. So I'm not going to really delve into that right now. But you see how I've kind of filled each slot in. I just did up to 2 o'clock, 3. But basically, we would take items from the to-do list. Now, here's the other thing. Sometimes you may look at your to-do list and you may have, uh, you know, a number of items on it, but there might be 3 or 4 items on there that are the T items, those that are going to get you in trouble, and they may take longer than an hour or 2 hours. So all of a sudden, uh, you end up putting 3 or 4 of those on the time when you've already scheduled, or you've had other things scheduled, obviously the luncheon schedule in what we have from before, but you fill those in, and then all of a sudden, you've got no more time in that day. So what are you going to do? You got to take, and you may have some left over. So maybe you have to go back and figure out which ones are the ones that really need to be done on Monday, and the other ones that you can slide over to Tuesday. And you see where we're going here? So basically, that's the system. It's very, very short, very sweet, but we're going to send you a PowerPoint of this particular section so you can take a look at it. If you have any questions when you start using it, if you email me your questions, I will certainly try to answer them.